Andy McDonald. I'm the HR manager for Vanguard National Trailer. I've been in human resources now for over 15 years. I started as an HR support specialist, working on things like compensation, recruiting. So I know all things hiring, firing, and a little bit enough to be dangerous on the other things. So I've conducted over 1,000 interviews and managed employees through many behavior-based issues and helped them work through their problems, and the managers too. So today we're talking about behavior in the workplace, behaviors that will either set you up for success or may doom your employment. One of the first things is knowing your work schedule. Most employers have a set work schedule for the week. So it may be a Monday through Friday work schedule, it may be a weekend job, or it may be intermittent, but each day you should know what time you're supposed to be at work and what time you should be leaving. It's important that you be punctual, you're on time for work, that you take your breaks at the appropriate times, and that you then leave on time from work. Not doing this will cause you to be viewed as unreliable and will limit your ability to be promoted and receive pay increases. Attendance is vital for the employer and for your paycheck. If you are not on time, if you take breaks at inappropriate times, if you're constantly leaving early, if you're calling out sick, if you consistently find reasons not to be at work, your employer will not view you as reliable. It will cause problems with your teammates because they'll have to pick up your slack. It will cause disagreements with them. And it will also inevitably end up with you being terminated from employment. And in a situation of someone who is recently released from prison on parole, on probation, in many cases, they're required to maintain employment to be on probation or parole. It can end up with them being back in jail, and no one wants that. Sexual harassment can be anything from something that seems very innocent, like telling someone that they look very nice today, that they're pretty, that they're hot, all the way up to actually making physical contact with someone or being aggressive towards them in a sexual way. In no workplace is any of this appropriate. It may seem innocent at times what the person is doing by complimenting someone on their appearance, but the other party may not feel that way. It could also include things like asking someone out on a date, posting a video or a poster that you think is funny but has sexual connotations that are not considered funny by others. It may be just a joke to you, but it may not be just a joke to the other person or to others who are listening to the joke. It makes the workplace uncomfortable for others. It also causes them to have a negative view of you, that you would make a joke that you think is funny and they are not finding that funny. Asking someone out in the workplace is never appropriate. If you want to ask someone out, you ask them out outside of work. If they say yes, great, I hope it works out. If they say no, that's it. You never ask them out again. If you feel threatened by someone, you should report it to your supervisor or to a member of human resources, someone in management. If you make the inappropriate joke or say something inappropriate to someone, you'll receive discipline, and it could include termination. Social media, we're all on social media, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. What we post, we may think is funny, we may have some anger in our posts. You have to know that your employer is going to monitor your social media, and your coworkers are going to monitor that social media. If you're saying things that are negative about your coworkers, negative about your place of employment, that's not considered being a good employee. You should never do that. While it may not lead to your termination, it may cause you to be viewed as someone who is not putting forth what's in the company's best interest. It could lead to you being terminated, though. Many of the processes, the way that things are built in factories, the way that things are assembled, many of those processes are trade secrets. They would not want their competitors to know how they're building a trailer, a car, a lawnmower, or something as simple as how they're putting an ink pen together. They don't want anyone to know how they're doing that. They do not want you to take pictures or videos of what's going on inside the plant. It may seem like a harmless picture that you're going to post, or it may be that you're actually excited about the process and you want to show someone what you do at work. You can't do that. You can be putting the company's profit in jeopardy. What happens at the workplace should stay at the workplace. You shouldn't be posting on social media again. Your employer is taking certain steps, especially in the case of COVID, to keep you safe. They have a process down for it. But the way that we're dealing with COVID is a hot button issue right now. Someone may seize on something that's very innocent, like the way that they're taking your temperature, the questions that they're asking you. They may view that those questions are inappropriate, or that those questions aren't going far enough, that they're not doing enough, and it could cause problems for your employer. So you may take a picture and forward it to one of your friends via text or a message. You have no control over what that friend of yours is going to do with that message. You should never forward a picture or a video from work to a friend. Personal appearance is very important. It's a hot button issue of mine because I have to deal with it on an almost daily basis, especially in environments where it's hot. They're sweaty. You're going to have body odor issues. We understand that, but you should be showering and bathing every day. You should be brushing your teeth. Your appearance should be within your company's uniform, within their dress code. If you don't maintain those guidelines, you'll be sent home for the day. You may lose a day's pay. You may be docked points on your attendance policy for that. Or you may just be sent home and asked to come back wearing the proper uniform or within appearance guidelines. If someone, for example, has a foul body odor or their breath is very smelly, for lack of a better term, it makes everyone else uncomfortable. It makes them irritated. No one wants that. You want your employees and your coworkers to be in good spirits, to enjoy working with you. You want your relationship with them to be good. Not bathing, not brushing your teeth, being unkempt, those things are not going to lead to the outcome that we want. Many employers will have guidelines that exclude pants such as leggings, jeggings, spandex, cut-off t-shirts. Many times for safety reasons, employers may ask that you wear a long-sleeve shirt or that the sides of your shirt not be cut out. Tank tops may be prohibited, hoodies as well may be prohibited. For example, on a production line, if you have a hood or even if your hair is too long, it may be caught in the conveyor. We've had that happen where an employee was running a drill. He was running the drill up close to his head. He turned, his ponytail got caught in the drill and it actually ripped his hair out of his head. Having a ponytail is fine. Having a ponytail and getting it caught in a drill is not fine. Most employers reserve the right to inspect items that are brought into the plant. This could be a lunchbox, a backpack, a cooler, it may be a purse. You need to be aware of what you have in that backpack, that purse, that cooler. It may be something that you don't want your employer to see. So you need to be careful. You should only be bringing in what you need for the day into work. Your lunch, depending on if you're a lady, you may want your makeup, things like that. But other items you may not want in there for your employer to see. This one should go without saying, but if you're on parole or probation, there are probably rules in place for not using illegal substances, possibly even alcohol use. Your employer may have policies in place where they administer random drug tests, alcohol tests, or they may test you for cause. They may have reason to test you. If you test positive under those policies, you'll lose your employment. And for most people who are on parole or probation, having a job is one of the requirements to be on parole or probation. I had an employee come in. He was operating a drill. He accidentally hit his hand with the drill. He came to the nurse's station to receive treatment. He smelled like alcohol. We asked him if he'd been drinking that day. He said no. He repeated that several times. Then he admitted that, well, the night before he watched a football game and he did drink a 12-pack of beer that night and he didn't go to bed until 3 or 4 in the morning. We administered an alcohol test to him. When we administered the alcohol test to him, he failed it. He was still drunk, and that was 4 hours into his shift. He was terminated. An employee may smoke marijuana recreationally, they may use other drugs, but those drugs remain in their system. So they may come to work, they may feel fine, but then an accident occurs They hit their hand with a drill, they accidentally cut themselves, and they require medical attention. We are going to drug test that person. We may administer an alcohol test. They may have smoked marijuana a week before. The marijuana may not have impacted that accident at all. But at that point, the treatment for that injury is now on them, and they're no longer employed to pay for the treatment. While marijuana is legal in other states, in the state of Georgia, it is still illegal. It is still tested for on most drug tests. If you test positive for it due to a company-related drug test, you're going to be terminated. It may be legal for you to use drugs and alcohol drugs in Colorado, but if the test shows up positive here, it doesn't matter where you smoked marijuana, you're going to be terminated. It's a safety policy related to the employer. So even if Georgia were to legalize it, we would have to see how the laws play out. But the way it stands now, you would be terminated for it. So smoking policies vary based on the employer. You may have an employer who allows you to smoke on property. Other employers do not. Some employers have certain places on property where you can smoke. Some employers do not allow you to smoke at all. There are healthcare employers here in our area who give nicotine tests now. You need to know your employer's policy. All employers are not going to allow you to smoke inside anymore. Many have places set up outside where you can go smoke, but you need to know what those rules are. Many employers offer free Wi-Fi to their employees so that they want to make sure that you're not using up all of your data. They want to make sure that you have access to the outside world even when you're at work. That's great, but you cannot use the company's Wi-Fi and expect the company not to monitor what you're looking at. If you're looking at something that's inappropriate, something that is sexually explicit, something that is incredibly violent, something that is offensive, they may move for termination on you over that. So there is no privacy when you are on company Wi-Fi. They own it, they control it, they can monitor it. Cell phone use in the workplace is a problem. It's especially a problem in a manufacturing environment. When an employee is at work and they're working around moving parts, they should be focused on their work. If their focus is on a screen in front of them and not on the production line, they're endangering everyone around them. It's no different than someone being on their cell phone when they're in a car. They're not focusing on the job at hand. We had an employee who was walking with the cell phone. She didn't notice that there was water on the floor. She slipped, she fell. She hurt herself because she wasn't paying attention. Most companies have rules regarding cell phones. Most manufacturers explicitly prohibit you from using those when you're on the manufacturing floor. So many employees, for some reason, have an attitude that they have a set job that they're supposed to do. That's all that they're going to do, and they're not going to assist others in their tasks if called upon or fill in another role. And this is problematic for a couple of different reasons. One, most job descriptions leave it very vague what your job is. Your job, as long as it's legal and safe, is for you to perform the tasks that your employer asks you to do. Now, you need to be qualified to perform those tasks, but you need to perform those tasks for your employer. If you decline to do it, if you say, no, I'm not going to do it, it's going to look very bad on you in the workplace. Also, it's going to prevent you from going above and beyond and proving to your employer that you can perform multiple tasks, that you can grow, you can learn. By growing and learning, proving that you can be relied upon to learn new things and to fill in for others, you're preventing yourself from potentially being promoted and receiving pay increases. It is not hard to work your way up in a manufacturing site. Manufacturing is physical work. You have to be both smart, use your brain, and you have to be able to physically do the job. Not everyone can do that, so that eliminates a large percentage of our population right away. Then if you stay with your employer in a manufacturing environment and you prove yourself to be reliable, you can move up. Many of our people who have come in, they become team leaders in 2 or 3 months. That's a $2 or $3 pay increase right there in 2 or 3 months. You're not going to see that in many other environments. Number one is just showing up. If you show up on time, you're there to do the job while you're there. That puts you above many others. It's willing to go the extra mile. It's having a good attitude. It's getting along well with others. Some of the characteristics that are very important if you want to promote and be successful in the workplace are having a good attitude, getting along well with others, being punctual, doing your job while you're on site, and going above and beyond, doing everything that your employer asks you to do. We're taught from a very early age we do not steal, but you will still find employees who think it's okay to walk off with small items and expensive items. We had an employee recently who needed to jump off a car that was stuck on the side of the road. So he used one of our portable generators to do this. That's not okay. A week later, after watching video, we determined who did it. He still denied that he did it until we showed him the video. Then he admitted it and he brought the generator back. That's not okay. He saw it as borrowing. He was going to return it at some point, but it wasn't okay for him to do that. He never asked to borrow the tool. Now, if you ask your employer to borrow a tool and they say yes, that's fine. But if you don't do that, it's stealing. You cannot leave the property with the company's property. Falsification of time is very simply saying that you were on site when you are not on site. Many employers have a time card system. It's a simple system that you clock in and out with. You can hand that card to someone else and they can clock you in. Last year I had to terminate someone because they took someone else's card who was running late to work, clocked that person in, and then when we found out about it, lied about it. Well, we have video that shows who used that time card to clock in. We fired the employee who clocked in the other employee, and then we fired the employee who was not there on site and asked someone to clock them in. They're not your friend if they're asking you to do something that's wrong, something that's going to jeopardize your job. That's not a friend. Physical confrontations are never okay in the workplace. The first thing that I say to our employees about it is this: there is nothing that happens at work that is worth you punching someone in the face over it, or risking your job, risking going back to jail over, okay? If there's a problem in the workplace where you feel so strongly that you need to put your hands on someone, you need to walk away and you need to talk to your manager about it. Your manager needs to work out that problem, not you, and you should never try to work out a problem physically. The main thing in dealing with a confrontation is you have to be able to walk away and speak with someone who's in management about the problem to address the problem. You can't revert back to your old ways of dealing with things of, I'll punch you, back away from me. You know, that's not how we deal with things in the workplace. We do have drama at work. For the most part in our workplace, things are so fast-paced. If there's drama going on, it's because someone doesn't have enough to do. So if you want to have more work added to your workload, start drama, because that's how we're going to deal with it. We do have drama in the workplace though. It's typically regarding things from outside of work. It's usually not regarding the work at all. Especially in close-knit communities, people hang out on the weekends, they know each other in the community, they'll have some sort of problem. It comes into the workplace. It's never okay to talk about your personal life at work. It seems like such a strong statement, but you should leave your personal life outside of work. You should focus on work when you're there. Someone with anger management issues, if that's brought to my attention, I'll speak to the employee about their anger and try to determine what's the underlying issue and see if we can address the issue. Is it work-related or is it something outside of work? I did have an employee who was very agitated. It was about a month ago. He was very agitated. He was lashing out verbally at his coworkers, and it was very unlike him actually to do that. So I sat him down, I talked to him, and yes, there were 2 or 3 things that were going on with him that were causing him to act differently than he normally acted. Many employers offer an employee assistance program, and those programs provide counseling to an employee, whether it be psychological counseling or the ability to go to the doctor and see a doctor about that issue. Horseplay is very dangerous. Examples of this may be things like simply picking up a small rivet or a small piece of equipment in an office and throwing it at someone. It seems like fun and games until you hit someone in the eye with it. Or it starts out with someone throwing something, then someone's pushing someone, then there's a fight on the production floor, all because you wanted to joke around. Again, it's very similar to sexual harassment. You think what you're saying is funny, you think it's a joke, but someone else doesn't think it's a joke, and it can escalate very quickly from there. I do have one example of an actual physical altercation that happened at work. So an employee left in one car and another employee left in a car. One of the employees decided they would try to throw a dime into the window of the other car. That employee didn't find it funny. He picked up a handful of change and threw it back at the other car. From there, it turned into a fist fight. Again, it was just a joke initially, but it didn't end as a joke. For those who are leaving prison, leaving jail, and they're going into the workforce, what I'd like for them to know is that they get a fresh start. Many people leave prison, they leave jail, they turn their lives around, and much of that turning around starts at work. Their life before prison was wild. It was chaotic. Work helps reduce that chaos. They're somewhere focused on a job for 8 hours, earning money, providing for their family, doing what they're supposed to be doing, being a good member of society. And if they can do that, then they can be successful with the rest of their life. For someone who's coming out of jail, one of the first things that I ask them is why they were in jail. And their answer to that tells me a lot about them. Do they own what they did? Are they willing to admit what they did? Or are they very vague about it? Because I can find out why they were in jail. So I'm gonna know if they're not telling me the truth. If they're candid about it and they show remorse, they show that they're sorry for what they did and that they've changed. If they can verbalize that to me, then that's a big first step. Now, they have to prove it after that. But if they can just admit to me what they did, even if it's something terrible, then that shows me that it's possible that they can change. No matter the position, if you're applying for a position in an office, in a manufacturing environment, in any industry, the ability to effectively communicate is very important. When someone asks you a question, are you honest in your response? Are you thorough in your response? Do you clearly communicate verbally the answer to that question? Are you detailed? Whether you're working in an office or working in a manufacturing environment, being detailed is going to be very important. Do you effectively listen? If I ask you a question, is it clear to me that you understand what I'm saying to you, what I'm asking you? One of the biggest things too is, can you keep your composure in a work environment, and do you play well with others? If you can't get along with other people in the workplace, you're not going to be successful. We give many people opportunities. We give them the opportunity to be successful. What they do with it is really up to them. I'm here to help them. One thing that I would want people to know is how much we care about our employees and how much we want them to be successful. I'm there for them. I'm there for them to talk to me. And they need to know that management and their HR representatives, they're there to help them. They want them to be successful because we can't be successful without them. So employers have rules in place and they're going to enforce those rules. An example of that would be attendance. Many employees don't seem to take the attendance policy seriously. When I tell you that you can have 10 absences in a year, and if you go over that, I'm going to terminate you. I will give you warnings. I will give you a couple of warnings, but after that, you're going to be terminated. You should not be surprised when you're terminated. And you have to take responsibility for your actions. You are the one who didn't come into work. Yes, 1 or 2 of those times that you were absent, they were probably out of your control. 10 times, I don't think so. You should have come to work. Many employees, they will use the attendance points or their absences for fun things. They want to go to the lake, they want to go hike, they just want to lay in bed all day. That's fine. But when you really need that absence, when you need the day off because someone's in the hospital or your kid's hurt or something very serious is going on in your life, it's not there. Now at that point, many of the employees, when they're terminated, they may take to social media and say, this company fired me because my mom was in the hospital. She had a heart attack and they wouldn't let me go. That's not why you were terminated. You were terminated because 8 or 9 times before that, you chose not to come to work, and now when it's a serious issue, you don't have the time off anymore.
My name is Josh Henson. I'm the EHS manager at Vanguard, handle all the environmental health and safety for the facility and assist with the EHS responsibilities in Monon, Indiana. I've done safety for 15 or 16 years now. It's a passion of mine. It's something I've always enjoyed doing. I like working with people. I've always been asked the question, if you can give somebody one piece of advice from a safety standpoint, somebody with no knowledge whatsoever, what would it be? And I guess kind of the big running joke is, if it's moving, don't touch it. That's the best piece of advice you can give somebody coming into an industrial manufacturing facility is, don't touch it. So that's something I'd really like to stress to somebody. You'd be surprised, because you would think that wouldn't happen very often. It does, very much so. They get very production-based, do more faster, quickly as they can. And that happens. And, our job, and something that we stress, is, holding each other accountable, watching out for the person working beside you. We don't have any positions at our facility where you're working solo. Everybody has somebody. So, don't be afraid while you're working with somebody to, tell them, hey, hold tight. You may want to rethink that. That's something we stress a lot. The issue that we typically see is, we'll have an associate get hired on and, they're really good with tools. They're not being hired on in maintenance, but, they've watched maintenance do this job 2 or 3 times, and they feel as comfortable to step in and do that. We always, with our skilled positions, we put a little bit more emphasis on training, make sure we give them a lot more machine specific. Machine operators don't get the nuts and bolts and all the machine specific that an electrician would, but he's really good with tools, so he feels like he can step in and do it, and we've seen people get injured that way also. So for me, and it's really funny because, my job probably should be a lot more black and white. I'm that guy that lives in that gray area. More likely you're never going to do anything to mess anything up that we can't work through and fix. One of my black and whites that always has been is, coming to work under the influence. Drinking, drugs, prescription medication, recreational drugs, whatever the case may be. That's one of the things we can't tolerate. It can't happen. I tell people all the time, if you're working with somebody and they're under the influence, if they care that much about their safety, how much do you think they care about yours? So, for us, that's one of my big pet peeves. That's one of my black and whites, shalls and shall not, is coming to work under the influence. We'll tell our new hires, if for some reason you have fun the night before and lose track of time, may just want to go ahead and phone that one in. Don't come to work in that condition. So that's one of the biggest things I can stress to somebody. One of the things that I can see us touching base on it usually once every couple of weeks, and especially with the COVID-19, is universal precaution. We're working in a manufacturing facility. We're building trailers. You're going to have nicks, cuts, scrapes, things of that nature. So we really put a lot of emphasis on the universal precaution, treating everybody as if they're infected, irregardless of what you know or don't know about them. We always try and make sure we touching base on if it's not yours, don't touch it. Because human instinct, if somebody gets injured, a lot of times you want to jump in and help. And that's totally understandable, but we have people that are trained, that they've had additional skilled training. They know how to handle certain situations that maybe the average person wouldn't. So that's one of the things that we see come up a lot. We make it real clear right out of the gate. We're asking you to do a job. We're going to give you the tools to do a job. If you're injured while performing the job we're asking you to do, the way we're asking you to do it, it's our job, right, duty, and responsibility to take care of you. But you still have those associates, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, didn't think it was that bad. Well, when did it happen? Well, it happened 2 weeks ago. That's, that makes things a little tricky, but that is something that we do periodically see from time to time is, not reporting injuries in a timely manner. We're not in the business of firing people because they get hurt. We actually go out of our way to, I guess, kind of lift somebody up for actually reporting an injury, because at the end of the day, if it's a near miss, maybe it's not that bad. If you tell us about it, hopefully we can keep the next associate from same thing happening and or worse. So we highly encourage our associates to keep us in the loop, let us know, keep us up to speed. And like I said, we're not in the business of firing people because they get injured. I want to make sure at the end of the day you go home with all your fingers and toes you came in with. We do have some incentive programs that tie into our recycling, environmental safety, things of that nature. I think so far this year, current calendar year, we're, I think, the best we've been since the facility's open. And like I said, it is one of the things that we really encourage because nobody wants to get hurt. The COVID-19 and everything that's taken place with the pandemic, we've always had things in place to protect people from germs, diseases, things of that nature. But with COVID-19, it's really changed how we looked at things. I guess you think you did a good job before, and then when this happened, you kind of stand back and realize maybe you could have done a whole lot better. So a lot of things that we've done, we've done the mask, providing all of our associates with masks or the neck buffs that they can pull up, gloves. We used to, our facility used to be unlocked. Front office used to be unlocked. Everything's locked down now. Everything is basically on an appointment type basis. Entry into our facility, whether you're a vendor, that's really been limited. We expect that probably to stay limited moving forward. With industrial hygiene, basically it's taking, I guess, a standard hygiene program, the average person, and amplifying it. The reason that it's amplified is the fact that you're working with people very closely, different people all day, multiple days per week. The industrial hygiene is very, very important for our facility. Trust me, sometimes it may make for some awkward conversation, but that's conversations that still have to be had. Some of the new things that came out with COVID-19, we've always had cleaning crews that have came through and cleaned our restrooms, cleaned our break room areas. Since the COVID-19, we've actually got to the point to where we clean those areas approximately 6 to 8 times a day. All right, so we used to do it once a day. Now we're doing it approximately 8 times a day, scattered over 2 shifts. The new, I guess, standard for us, if an associate, manager, vendor, maybe you come to our facility every single day, but it's been 72 hours since you've been to our facility. Moving forward, you've got to get your temperature checked. You've got several questions that you've got to ask and answer. If an associate is running a temperature of 99.9 degrees or higher, the associate has to go home for a minimum of 48 hours and or no temperature. So that's been one of the big things that's changed for us. I know twice a week right now we check all of our associates, Mondays and Wednesdays. All of our associates get their temperatures checked before they come into the facility. A little time consuming. That's what we're anticipating the new normal being. So that's been an adjustment period, kind of an adjustment transition for us, going through and having to do those things. But at the end of the day, it keeps our associates safe. That's what we're all about. That's what we're going to do. You must have a mask on you at all times, no questions asked. If you're within 6 feet of another associate, your mask must be pulled up, worn correctly, no questions asked. The beautiful thing about working down here in the South, it gets a little warm. So of course that was something that we had to stay on, we had to address every day for several weeks. The associates, they bought into it relatively quickly, but still, that's something that we would still go throughout our facility on a daily basis, and you'd have 1 or 2 people that you would still have to stop. Hey, where's your mask? And they've gotten really accustomed to wearing it at this point. With our temperature checks that we do now, of course we have an attendance policy in place that HR's very good with. They explain it, they assist our associates with that. But with the new COVID process that we have in place, if an associate meets one of the, I guess, requirements, one of the bullet points, and they then have to be sent home, they're sent home basically by us. That's not counted against the associate at that time. You know, like I said, our biggest goal is to make sure the safety of all of our associates is where it needs to be. So in the event that we have to send somebody home for that, it's not counted against them towards their attendance policy.